In a recent case that has gripped national news headlines, 21-year-old University of Kentucky cheerleader Laken Snelling is accused of discarding her newborn infant in a trash bag at an off-campus residence in Lexington. Officers responded to a call about an unconscious baby, but by the time they arrived, the child was deceased. An autopsy report listed the baby's cause of death as inconclusive. Snelling reportedly admitted that the infant was hers and confessed to cleaning any evidence of the birth while tossing the supplies she used in the same trash bag that she discarded her child in. She pleaded not guilty to concealing the birth of an infant, tampering with physical evidence, and abuse of a corpse, and is currently on house arrest as she awaits her next court hearing, which is scheduled for late September. In one of the latest developments in the case, news outlets revealed that Snelling's ex-boyfriend, 21-year-old Isaiah Hall, has provided police with a DNA sample to determine whether he's the child's father. Hall's father, 45-year-old Justin Smith, told the New York Post that he didn't know if Isaiah was the father or not. He declined to answer any additional questions, including when his son's relationship with Snelling ended. There's also speculation that the infant may have been fathered by a more recent boyfriend, but the results of the DNA test remain to be seen. In the meantime, Snelling has dropped out of college and is no longer a member of the university's STUNT cheerleading team. Number 19. The murder of Przemyslaw Jeziorski. 43-year-old University of California marketing professor Przemyslaw Jeziorski was shot dead on July 4th of 2025 while visiting his twin sons in Athens, Greece. The attacker fled the scene and 5 suspects have since been charged in connection with the case, including Jeziorski's ex-wife, Konstantina Nadia Mikhailoudaki, her boyfriend, and 3 male accomplices. 2 months before his death, Jeziorski had applied for a restraining order against Mikhailoudaki, claiming that he feared for his life and accusing his ex-wife of moving their sons to Greece in an attempt to alienate him from them. He further claimed that Mikhailoudaki's new boyfriend, Christos, had assaulted him during a previous visit to Athens in May of 2024. Jeziorski noted in the petition that he feared for his life, claiming that Mikhailoudaki had blackmailed him into dropping prior assault charges against Christos by threatening to ruin his reputation. He asked the court to ban Mikhailoudaki from contacting him unless it was about their children, to ban her from contacting his colleagues, and to revoke her access to any bank accounts relating to the former couple's rental properties. The judge denied the protective order, citing a lack of reasonable proof of past abuse. In late July, 4 out of the 5 suspects pleaded guilty to their roles in Jeziorski's murder. Mikhailoudaki continues to maintain her innocence, claiming she had no idea her partner planned to kill her ex and had nothing to do with his death. Number 18. James Bachmurski. High school student Jade Colvin vanished in March of 2017 after being removed from her mother's care and spending 2 years in various foster homes. She was living in Arizona when she went to stay with her mother's ex-partner, James Bachmurski, at his farm near Decorah, Iowa. Within days of her arrival at the property, Colvin went silent on social media. The case hit a standstill for several years before being taken over by the U.S. Marshals, who informed the Iñupiaq County Sheriff's Office of Colvin's disappearance in 2022. An investigation was launched, and the findings indicated that the teen's mother had arranged for her to move to Bachmurski's farm after regaining custody of Colvin. Colvin's body was never found, but prosecutors believed that there was enough evidence to argue in court that she had been murdered. In their search for a culprit, all signs pointed towards Bachmurski, who prosecutors accused of having an inappropriate attraction to Colvin. The suspect was not very forthcoming when questioned about Colvin's whereabouts, but made an ominous remark about how he'd go to the grave before he told the truth. In September of 2025, more than 8 years after Colvin's disappearance, 66-year-old Bachmurski was found guilty of second-degree murder. The verdict came after the defense unsuccessfully argued that Colvin could still be alive, which was refuted with evidence pointing to the contrary. During the trial, Bachmurski's own son testified against him, claiming that his father had repeatedly dodged his attempts to locate Colvin while behaving in a cryptic fashion. The convicted killer is currently awaiting sentencing from behind bars at the Iñupiaq County Jail. Number 17. Josue Bayardo Rodas. An impromptu Labor Day weekend getaway ended in murder for one Texas family when 2 young sisters tried to wake their mother up and found her dead. 29-year-old Josue Rodas, 21-year-old Glenda Maria Aguilera Rubio, and their daughters went to stay at a relative's home in Fort Worth after getting into a dispute with a family member at their previous residence. They planned to stay for a few days before moving out of state, but another household member was awoken to the two girls saying that they had found their mother covered in blood. Rubio had died from gunshot wounds to the head and upper body, and Rodas was nowhere in sight. The victim's car was missing from the driveway, and surveillance footage showed a similar vehicle in the area at 4 a.m., which meant that Rodas had likely been gone for around 3 hours. By the time Rubio's body was found, he surrendered to law enforcement a short while after the discovery was made and ended up confessing to the homicide. While it's unclear what led up to the murder, police learned from other household members that the couple had been drinking together the previous night. Investigators also discovered that the family had left their previous residence after Rodas allegedly pointed a gun at other household members. Following his arrest, the accused wife killer was booked into the Tarrant County Jail, where he remains in custody with bond set at $500,000. Number 16. Teddy Kyle Smith. A recently released Hulu documentary is exploring the attempted murders of two hunters at the hands of up-and-coming actor Teddy Kyle Smith, who killed the victims amid a string of other crimes in Alaska. The ordeal unfolded in September of 2012 when Smith vanished following the suspicious death of his 74-year-old mother, Dolly. That same day, he had fired a gun into a crowd outside Dolly's home, which would later result in 4 assault charges. Smith's whereabouts remained a mystery until nearly 2 weeks later, when police responded to a call about 2 men who had been shot during a hunting trip near the remote town of Kiana. The victims, Paul and Charles Buckle, told police that Smith had shot them during an encounter at a cabin where they were staying. He then stole their inflatable raft and fled via the nearby Squirrel River, where law enforcement set up a blockade and apprehended him without incident. In addition to the assault charges, Smith was charged with 2 counts of first-degree robbery, 2 counts of second-degree robbery, 2 counts of first-degree assault, and 2 counts of first-degree attempted murder. When questioned about his reason for shooting the Buckles, he said that little people from Iñupiaq folklore had forced him to do it. He also blamed these sinister creatures known as Iñupiaqs for guiding him along during his crime spree. Smith was never charged in connection with his mother's death, and authorities ruled that no foul play was involved, even though her cause of death remained undetermined. But he'll likely spend the rest of his life in prison after being found guilty on all counts in 2014 and sentenced to 99 years. During a prison interview for the documentary Blood and Myth, which took place more than a decade after his crimes, Smith maintained his story about an encounter with Iñupiaq's influence in his decision to shoot Paul and Charles Buckle. He acknowledged in hindsight that he made the wrong choice and expressed remorse for his actions, which brought his acting career to an abrupt end. Number 15. Matthew Millar. 50-year-old Jason Roth met his untimely death in late April of 2023 while serving time in the secure psychiatric unit of a New Hampshire state prison. 6 correction officers were attempting to restrain him for refusing to leave the recreation area when one of the guards, 39-year-old Matthew Millar, put his weight on Roth's neck and upper back while his co-workers handcuffed the inmate. During that time, Roth became unresponsive and efforts to revive him with CPR failed. He was pronounced dead at a nearby hospital, and an investigation found that Millar's restraint tactic fell out of line with the Department of Corrections policies. Prosecutors acknowledged that several other things went wrong during the ordeal that led up to Roth's death, but they determined that Millar was responsible and charged him with second-degree murder. Millar has maintained his innocence, with his attorneys arguing that he was scapegoated and that Roth died from a heart attack rather than homicidal force. The defense also refuted claims that Millar had applied pressure to Roth's back for several minutes, stating that he had kept his knee on top of the inmate for 1 to 2 seconds at most. Millar was acquitted of all charges following a jury trial in July of 2025. After spending nearly 2 years in pre-trial detention, he walked away a free man, leaving the Attorney General's office disappointed by the outcome of the case. Number 14. Marquis Ponder. While responding to a vehicle accident in Kansas City, Missouri in May of 2025, police found 30-year-old Levon Quinn suffering from a fatal gunshot wound. Investigators traced Quinn's last movements and discovered that just before the crash, he had been shot in the back outside a nearby business after arguing with another man. Surveillance showed Quinn running away and driving off after being struck by the bullet. based on the suspect's security guard uniform. Authorities were able to identify him as 30-year-old Marquis Ponder. 4 days after the accident, prosecutors charged him with second-degree murder, 2 counts of armed criminal action, and unlawful use of a weapon in connection with Quinn's death. Ponder reportedly refused to go into detail about the incident with police and was booked into the Jackson County Detention Center, where he remains in custody with bonds set at $500,000. Local news station KHSB 41 looked into his background and discovered that he has no criminal record and no disciplinary history at his job, where he worked for 2 years at a public school before being fired shortly after his arrest. Number 13. Chalaka Young. After spending 27 years in prison for a murder he didn't commit, 54-year-old Brian Hooper Sr. was exonerated and released in 2025. He had previously been convicted of killing 77-year-old Anne Przemyslaw, whose decomposing remains were found in her closet in 1998 after a rotating door of drug users was seen coming and going from her apartment. A woman named Chalaka Lewis, now known as Chalaka Young, implicated Hooper in the killing along with 4 jailhouse informants who claimed that he had confessed to the crime. Over the years, the latter 4 witnesses recanted their testimony, while Hooper fought unsuccessfully to regain his freedom. The case for his innocence finally took a turn in his favor this year when Young, who's now 50 years old and serving a 10-year prison sentence in Georgia for aggravated assault, confessed to killing Przemyslaw. She cited her newfound Christian faith as a reason for finally owning up to the crime in a 7-page handwritten statement, and prosecutors say she'll most likely face a murder charge for Przemyslaw's death. In the meantime, Hooper is now a free man and is back with his family after nearly 3 decades behind bars. Number 12. Stuart Hanmer. 33-year-old Cody Ernst died at a sober living facility on June 22nd of 2025 after suffering from unexplained vomiting, seizures, and other mysterious symptoms for several weeks. He had landed in the hospital several times due to the unidentified illness, eventually becoming paralyzed and being put on a life support during his final days. A toxicology test revealed a deadly amount of thallium in the man's body, leading to the suspicion that he had been deliberately poisoned to death. The heavy metal, which was once used as rat poison, has been banned in the United States for several decades. While investigating Cody's roommate, 35-year-old Stuart Hanmer, police discovered suspicious Google searches about thallium and its effects on the human body, along with evidence that Hanmer had recently purchased the toxic substance. Hanmer denied any knowledge of thallium poisoning as a method of killing someone and did not speak of any issues with Ernst, but all signs pointed toward his involvement in the crime. In early September, he was booked into the Stearns County Jail on a second-degree murder charge, where he remains in lieu of $2 million bond. Number 11. Christopher Palazzolo. Elise Palazzolo died from a drug overdose in May of 2021, but her body was covered with injuries indicating that she had been subjected to prolonged torture prior to her passing. Interest naturally turned toward her husband, Christopher Palazzolo, who admitted to causing Elise's injuries but argued that she had consented to the mistreatment as a punishment for lying. He showed police a waiver consent form which listed choking, cutting with a knife, and spanking with a wooden spoon or a hanger as various types of disciplinary action. Following an investigation, authorities charged Christopher with torture and domestic violence. After deliberating for just over an hour following his trial in July, a jury found him guilty on both counts. He was sentenced in early September to 40 to 80 years in prison, with credit for 93 days of time served. Number 10. Jermard Lewis. 59-year-old Perla Nieto was stabbed to death in December of 2023 during an argument with a disgruntled customer while working at a Kroger grocery store in Waynedale, Indiana. The killer, Jermard Lewis, thought he had heard his name over the store's intercom, and he became angry when Nieto denied calling for him. After being told to leave due to his aggressive behavior, Lewis took his girlfriend home, then returned to the store. He later claimed that he planned to resolve the situation with a manager, but Nieto approached him first and took a swing at him. Lewis reacted by pulling a pocket knife and stabbing her, in his words, enough times not to care. Following a 3-day trial in September of 2025, a jury found the 32-year-old defendant guilty of murder, rejecting the defense's argument that a manslaughter conviction would be more appropriate due to a lack of premeditation. He faces 45 to 65 years in prison and is due back in court for sentencing in late September. Number 9. Ruth Miller. While responding to a reported accident at Atwood Lake, Ohio, in late August of 2025, police encountered an Amish woman and her 3 teenage children on a golf cart in the water, later identified as 44-year-old Ruth Miller. The woman made bizarre statements about conversing with God. Over the next 2 days, officers found the bodies of Ruth's husband, 45-year-old Marcus Miller, and the couple's young son, Vincent, in the reservoir. Ruth was taken to a hospital for a mental evaluation and has since been charged with aggravated murder, felonious assault, child endangerment, and 3 counts of domestic violence. According to authorities, she confessed to purposely drowning Marcus and Vincent while making them do various swimming exercises as a so-called test from God. She believed the 2 victims drowned after failing the tests and admitted to also trying to drown her 3 older children by driving the golf cart into the lake. Based on the investigation's findings, police believe that the vacation began like any other and that none of the victims had any idea what was in store for them. Ruth has pleaded not guilty by reason of insanity to the charges and remains held without bond at the Tuscarawas County Jail. Number 8. John Finney. On the evening of Monday, September 1st of 2025, a 911 caller in Jefferson County, Illinois, reported a possible homicide in the city of Mount Vernon. The complainant provided a possible location of the crime along with a description of the suspect's Ford Escapade. About an hour later, police in nearby Franklin County spotted the vehicle and conducted a traffic stop in DeCoin. In the escaped hatchback, they found the murdered body of 42-year-old Amy Finney, who had been fatally shot. Behind the wheel of the car was Amy's husband, 51-year-old John Finney, who was arrested at the scene and has since been charged with first-degree murder. Based on evidence found at the Finney's home, investigators believe John killed Amy during a domestic dispute at the couple's residence in Mount Vernon before loading her body into his vehicle and driving around for several hours. He's currently in custody at the Jefferson County Jail while awaiting an upcoming pre-trial detention hearing. Number 7. Connor Hilton. Just days before Christmas in 2023, 18-year-old Connor Hilton invited 2 friends over to his Friendswood, Texas home to show them his new gun. During the visit, he shot both men in the head. 18-year-old Ethan Riley died from his wound, while 19-year-old Benjamin Blyek survived after spending months in the intensive care unit and rehab following his arrest for murder and aggravated assault with a deadly weapon. Hilton admitted to shooting the victims. He told police that there were no fights or disturbances with Riley and Blyek before he pulled the trigger and that he had wanted to commit a homicide for a long time. According to law enforcement, the young man acknowledged an understanding of the wrongfulness of his actions, stating that he fully understands what he had done and that he should be held accountable. Hilton told a different story in court, arguing through his defense attorney that he had suffered from psychosis caused by the acne medicine Accutane. He claimed to have taken more than prescribed on the day of the shooting, but the judge refused to allow an expert to testify regarding his mental state when the crime occurred. As his scheduled trial approached in September of 2025, Hilton pleaded guilty as charged. He was sentenced to concurrent terms of 50 and 20 years. Number 6. Ty Burns. In 2 separate domestic disputes that occurred in November of 2024 and April of 2025, 46-year-old Oklahoma State Representative Ty Burns was accused of trying to gouge his wife's eye out and running his teenage daughter off the road with his truck. During the more recent incident, he was accused of threatening to kill his mother-in-law after accusing his wife of getting their daughter drunk. After the women left in a minivan, Burns chased after them with his pickup truck and rammed the vehicle into a ditch. In early September, he pleaded guilty to 1 misdemeanor count of domestic abuse and 2 misdemeanor counts of assault. Burns was spared from prison time instead, receiving a 1-year suspended sentence and was ordered to complete a year-long batterers intervention program. Following his guilty plea, the beleaguered lawmaker resigned from the legislature. In a statement, he said that he took full responsibility for his actions and was attending counseling to address long-ignored issues stemming from his past military service. Number 5. Christopher Caron. On August 23rd of 2025, police were called to a hospital in Weymouth, Massachusetts, where a deceased man had been found in the back seat of a Honda sedan. The body, which was wrapped in blankets and secured with duct tape, was identified as 27-year-old Declan Perry. His remains had been dropped off at the emergency room by 42-year-old Christopher Caron, who had fled the scene by the time law enforcement arrived. During the investigation that followed, residents at an apartment complex in nearby Scituate told police that they had unknowingly helped Caron move the body, believing that it was a hockey goalie mannequin, which was usually filled with water. Caron later turned himself in on a warrant, charging him with Perry's murder. According to prosecutors, Caron claimed that Perry died from an overdose. A witness said that Perry was alive when she went to sleep and dead when she woke up, and that Caron unsuccessfully administered 3 doses of Narcan in an attempt to revive him. But prosecutors believe there's more to the story, citing injuries that Perry received while he was still alive. Following his arrest, Caron pleaded not guilty and was remanded without bail. Authorities have not publicly speculated on a motive for the crime. Number 4. James Wilson III. On September 7th of 2022, an elderly Georgia man named James Wilson III contacted the McDuffie County Sheriff and admitted to shooting his 75-year-old wife, Virginia Sue Wilson. As responding deputies approached the scene, they found James standing outside with a gun in his hand. He once again admitted to killing Virginia, stating, "I've done made a mess," and was taken into custody following a brief standoff. James never provided investigators with a motive for the crime. In late August of 2025, the 77-year-old pleaded guilty to murder and possession of a firearm while committing a felony. During his sentencing hearing, his attorney urged for leniency due to age-related health problems, noting that while the defendant is in decent health, he's becoming weak and struggles to manage his food intake. The judge sentenced Wilson to 15 years in prison without parole, followed by 20 years of probation, which in this case may very well amount to a life sentence. Number 3. Brandon Morrissette. Convinced that his wife was cheating, Brandon Morrissette drove to the Rose State College campus in Midwest City, Oklahoma, in April of 2023 and fatally shot 20-year-old Robiny R.J. Long. He committed the crime despite his wife's repeated denials of an affair with the victim, who was exiting a building with the woman when the deadly confrontation took place. Long was shot 7 times and Morrissette was arrested at the scene. Morissette's wife maintained that she was not having an affair, telling police that Long was a classmate and a platonic friend. After deliberating for several hours following a 3-day trial in late August of 2025, a jury found the defendant guilty of first-degree murder and possession of a firearm on school grounds. Jurors recommended a life sentence without parole for Morrissette, who is scheduled to be formally sentenced in mid-October. The district attorney recommended an additional 1-year sentence for the gun charge, and Morrissette is facing charges in a separate case for possessing illegal images of minors. Today's topic was requested by Sarah Elizabeth 8691. If you have any other topics you'd like to learn about, subscribe and let us know in the comments section below. Number 2. Terry McKirchy. While babysitting a 6-month-old infant named Benjamin Dowling in July of 1984, Terry McKirchy shook the baby so hard that she caused him to suffer permanent brain damage and lifelong physical disabilities. She pleaded no contest to attempted murder and aggravated battery the following year and served 60 days in jail, followed by 3 years of probation. McKirchy's actions caught up with her for a second time following Dowling's death in 2019, after an autopsy found that he had passed away as a result of his injuries from 1984. The former babysitter was charged with first-degree murder in 2021, and in 2025 she pleaded guilty to the lesser charge of manslaughter. McKirchy was sentenced to 3 years in prison, followed by 10 years of probation, and was ordered to write an apology letter detailing precisely what happened on the day Dowling was injured. In the letter, she said that she had struck Dowling in a state of impulse and anger, while he and other children in her care were crying. The convicted killer expressed remorse to Dowling's parents, who released a statement describing the anguish they experienced while raising a son who never crawled, walked, talked, or enjoyed solid food. Number 1. Molly Colleen Spears. In February of 2024, a Texas high school teacher was indicted by a grand jury for having an inappropriate relationship with one of her students while working at Barbers Hill High School in Chambers County 2 years earlier. A warrant was issued for her arrest, but 35-year-old Molly Colleen Spears was not taken into custody until she surrendered to law enforcement in February of 2025. According to prosecutors, Spears had intercourse and other illegal contact with the student after soliciting the relations through text message and a commercial online service. She resigned from her position after the allegations first arose in mid-2023 and was released from jail after posting a $50,000 bond following her arrest more than a year and a half later. Just weeks after her arrest, Spears was taken back into custody on additional assault charges for incidents that are believed to have occurred in 2022 and 2023. She was released on a $100,000 bond, and the case appears to be ongoing. Thanks for watching. Do you personally know anyone who's currently in jail? If so, what are they in for, and how long is their sentence? Share with us in the comments below.